Hey, what's up, everybody? The podcast is going to start in just a second, but since you guys are on YouTube, I wanted to give you a little behind-the-scenes tour and explain one thing about today's episode. First, the audio has got a little bit blurry in a spot. It's my fault, not the people on the podcast, and this is why. So this is how we do the show. I have these two mixers now that I'm just learning how to use that do all the audio, and I had some settings wrong during the start. Then there's the TV behind me where you can see the guests. And then I have these cameras mounted on the walls that I switch to during the show. And then Skype is here. This is where I'm actually talking to the people on the show. It's here, and then with HDMI, it's sent here under the crawl space and there to that TV. And then we have lights mounted to the walls. And this up here, this AC unit is my new best friend. With all these lights and the computers turned on, it was getting 87 degrees in here during the podcast. So you probably saw some sweat on my brow the last couple episodes, so I had to get a new air conditioner in here. And then all of the video cameras come into this cool little box that my wife got. That inside it has this computer. It had to go in this box to keep it quieter, and then I installed some fans on the box that are quieter fans than this. So this controls the whole video system. All the inputs come in here with that massive cords. And then on the keyboard here, you'll see me pressing the different buttons for the different inputs so we can switch to different cameras. Anyway, just wanted to give you a little behind-the-scenes tour before the episode starts, and apologize for a little bit of blurriness at the start. It stops a couple minutes into the episode, though. Hopefully I'll get those problems ironed out by next week. See you guys. This is the Improve Photography Podcast, episode number 176. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a landing page, a beautiful gallery, a professional blog, or a photography online store, it's all included with your Squarespace website. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com and enter offer code IMPROVE to get 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace, set your website apart. All right, today we have a ton to talk about. There are some cool questions that have come in on the Improve Photography community page that we want to go through. And Sandy is going to talk a little bit about tips for tethering your camera. And I have a beautiful poem to share with all of you. But we want to welcome Zelda Johns onto the podcast for the first time. Hey, Zelda.
Hey.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself in a couple sentences, just to introduce yourself to those who don't know you.
Sure. So I am what I guess most people would call an MWAC. I'm a mom with a camera, and I occasionally like to... You've never heard that? I think it's been kind of a derogatory term, but I embrace it. And I occasionally like to masquerade around as a professional photographer, sometimes.
Well, very cool. And you're in Atlanta, is that right?
I am, yes. Representing the South with a... Yeah, what's that?
Well, you don't have the Southern accent.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, my non-Southern accent.
The first question for today comes from Justin Zafaris, who wants to talk a little bit about battery packs for Speedlight. He's using the YN568 Speedlights, and he's wondering if he needs either just a battery charger for rechargeables, or if he should start using a battery pack. I don't use battery packs hardly at all. I have a couple, but I usually don't like things dangling off the Speedlight and putting them on together. The whole purpose of Speedlights for me is about simplicity. It's like just chuck rechargeable batteries in there and just shoot, and then when they're done, you put new ones in there. I don't like extra things on my flash, which is why I switched to the YN560 version 4 that has the built-in receiver. Do either of you guys use battery packs? It can be helpful.
I've been giving it a lot of thought recently. We use it at the studio that I work at, and it did kind of look funny at first because the ones that they have a little pack that hooks to your belt, and then the cord goes, and so it's like a super duper battery pack. And then, me changing batteries, I think like, okay, I could, justify looking stupid if it's going to save me some time. But I thought it looked really cheesy at first. So there's different levels of it, I assume.
I do not use battery packs. I do portrait shoots and I've shot some weddings. And just like you, Jim, I cannot even imagine the hassle of trying to deal with things dangling off of my speed lights. I'd rather just, I have an assistant occasionally and I'll use him to change out batteries if I need him to.
Yeah, the real benefit of using a battery pack is that recycle time. You can go pop, pop, pop faster and you don't have to wait for the flash. But I find that that's usually a problem when you're getting one flash on higher power. You know, where we have 1/1 full power on the flash, or even half power. It's going to take 2 or 3 seconds to get ready to recycle and to take the next shot. To avoid that, I usually just use more than one speed light. So I'll have 2 speed lights on a third power to get more power out of it. And then I can get the fast refresh time, but I don't have to have the external battery pack and plugging things in. It also adds some complexity to have just multiple flashes, but I have a nice tri-flash bracket. Maybe that should be my doodad actually this week. But a nice tri-flash bracket, so it's just really easy to pop one on there, pop an extra flash on, and then you get that faster cycle time.
Honestly, there's so many different ways to do it, you know, to achieve the same goal. So whatever works for that photographer, I'd say try it.
Yeah, and I've been tossing around the idea of getting that triple flash bracket for location shoots, and I find that even when I'm at weddings and receptions and in dark venues, I don't have to use my flashes at full power. So the recycle time has not been an issue for me.
All right, the next question comes from Janet Schill, who says, should I go full frame with a D750 or a crop sensor but a brand new body, the Nikon D500, that has a higher ISO and faster focusing? And she's shooting nature, wildlife, and landscape. So D750 or D500. Let's go round robin on this one, see what you guys think. And maybe the answer is I don't care. But for me personally, I would choose the D500. I love crop sensor. I think there are huge advantages to crop sensor. I prefer a crop sensor when we're talking about nature photography. You know, if we're doing landscape and wildlife, I think there are big advantages to having a crop sensor because we get greater depth of field. And when we're talking about wildlife photography, we get extra reach on our lenses, both of which are pretty nice benefits. So for me, that would be the choice. If she were a portrait photographer, I'd probably say the D750. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm curious as to what the reason was she was tossing around either crop sensor versus full frame. Is it like a budget issue, or is it, I don't know what, I guess I need more information.
Sandy?
Yeah. Well, I have the D750 and I love it. And I mean, I considered the D500 at first, but I mean, I really don't. I think either one will work fine. I think, we've talked about this a lot, and we keep going back and forth between crop sensor and full frame. I think either one would be amazing.
Well, I think you're right. Maybe the real answer here is go to Amazon, buy yourself one of those nice little Magic 8 balls that you used to use when you were a kid, and shake it up and let it decide. I mean, that'd be fun. Because really, I mean, you're right, Sandy. I mean, what does it matter, right? A D750 or a D500, they're both extremely capable cameras. Both of them have advantages and disadvantages for this situation. It's going to be personal preference, and that's why she's asking, like all of us, when you're buying a new camera, you just want to know all the different things. It's a ton of money, and so you want to make sure you're going to be happy with it. But you could probably go with the Magic 8 ball. You'd be fine.
Jim, you might be able to answer this. The one thing that I really love about the D750 as well, and if I was doing landscapes or something outdoors, it'd probably be used a lot more, but I liked that it had the time lapse built in. Does that have that on the 500?
I haven't had my hands on a Nikon D500 yet, but most all Nikon bodies, other than the very basic ones, will have that interval timer, and so it shouldn't be a problem. I will bet you my left arm that it has it. I mean, I'll just lop it right off if I'm wrong. I think it has it.
So back to my original statement, either one will be great.
That's right, Magic 8 ball. I'm telling you, this is going to be great.
Does the D500 have the articulating screen like the 750 does?
Yes.
Because I think that would make it does. Okay.
Yes, it does have the articulating screen.
I think it's even touchscreen, isn't it, on the D500?
Yes, I want to say that it is touchscreen. Yep, it is touchscreen.
And the D750 is not. Although I I haven't missed it.
But this is a tilty screen. It's not fully articulating. It'd be nice if it were fully articulating. And that's something that I use a lot because I'm recording tutorials for you guys while I'm out on location. And so I want to turn it around in selfie mode so I can actually see myself when I'm doing the video, and I can't. So it's like, it's the worst if you're, if you're in that situation. All right, the next.
Well, I know that. I'm sorry. I know that with people talking about full frame cameras, that they always talk about how heavy they are, and I also own the D750, and I gotta say it is super light. My lenses are heavier than the actual camera body itself. So if that's an issue regarding taking it out in nature and wildlife and landscapes and stuff, that the weight of the camera body, I don't think that's a thing with the 750.
That's a good
point.
What
do you think,
It's a
Sandy?
lot lighter than the the D810. That's a much heavier, chunkier body. I like the D750.
Right. But if she's doing nature and wildlife and landscapes and she's using a tripod, I mean, I just get a bicep workout, I guess.
Sandy's pretty sure that you should go with the Magic 8 Ball.
Yeah. But I love my D750. I can say that for sure.
All right.
I love mine as well.
Says when he's shooting small children, he's noticed that a normal light stand is too tall for shooting the kids, that the light's just a little bit too high coming above them. So he's wondering if we had any tips for that. I don't know if this is something you guys have faced, but I have found this as well, that if you use a light stand, even on the lowest one, it just puts the light kind of in a weird spot, too high for the kids. And so usually what I'll do is scoot the light stand back so that we don't have those heavy shadows under the chin and things like that. Now, when you do that, it's going to make the light a little bit harder. So that's usually not a great option. But in this situation, I think it's just easiest. I mean, you could get the light stand and like lay it on the ground and things like that, or have somebody just hold it at the right height. But sometimes I'll just scoot it back so it fills in the shadows for kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I have done in the past, which is it might be a little bit more complicated, but I took a 5-in-1 reflector and I took all the the coverings off, and I just had this screen, and then I put a Magmod sphere on it so that it was shooting through the flash was shooting through the Magmod sphere, and then it was also going through the diffuser panel, and that created a nice soft light. So you can control the height that way, but you obviously need somebody to hold that for you.
Yeah, it's a lot easier if you have somebody holding it, especially with kids, because they're going to move around. It's tough to get them just in the exact right spot. And so for kids, having somebody to hold the flash is a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how it became a part of my arsenal, but I have this super short light stand that I've used in the past, but you're still limited by the light modifier. So I tried it with a softbox that was too tall for the light stand. And then I just switched to an umbrella and it was fine. So they do make shorter light stands.
I think I'm going to start calling my photo gear an arsenal as well. I like that. Well, Sandy, you wanted to talk a little bit about tethering today. Tethering is when you're connecting your camera to a laptop or a desktop with a cord usually, or I guess you could do it wirelessly too, but it's usually with a cord. And then you can see the photos big on the screen right as you take them and start making edits. So what kind of situations are you using tethering in?
So since I do primarily commercial, so product photography and with studio lighting, and it's controlled, we have a cart, and I have my laptop on the cart and I can move it around. And it doesn't have to be a fancy cart by any means, but I think I got one at Home Depot for $30, and it's amazing. And what this allows you to do is actually make sure that your photos are in sharp focus. But it can be intimidating at first, especially, like if you're working with a client, I feel that we liked to keep our LCD screen, to ourselves sometimes and be like, oh, don't let them see that one. But since I kind of bit the bullet and just decided to strictly do tethering if I can, it's actually helped a lot, and it hasn't been a problem. Nobody's said, I don't trust you anymore, because you overexposed that one. I just, move along. But it helps, especially with like headshots or anything, primarily with women, I've found, because you might think that the photo looks great, but they'll look at it on the computer screen right then and there and say, oh no, I'd rather turn my head this way or something like that. And I would rather them tell me then than after I deliver the photos and find out that they don't like them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally does. I completely agree with that. I know a lot of people don't like showing the clients the photos because they feel like, oh, they'll see them before it's edited and think it's not going to be very good. But
it's scary, and I get it.
That's the photographer worrying about their work and not having confidence that, yes, I'm going to deliver good photos to you. And it's not really thinking about the client that they're going to have a lot of weird personal preferences. Like, I don't like it when you show the side of my face that has the mole, or I have a flyaway hair, or whatever tiny, my smile looks smirky, whatever, just little things that they don't like about themselves. The shoot is about them. And so I think giving them that opportunity is important. It would be like as if you didn't look at your LCD the whole time because you're like, oh, I might not like looking at the picture during the shoot, right? It's like that for them. If they don't get to see themselves, then they can't make adjustments either. I think that's a good point.
And I found that it helped loosen them up a little bit too, because when you're in front of the camera and you're so stiff, but then once you see what you're doing, we joke around and we laugh a lot. And then another way to kind of negate that anxiety is if you are able to set up your system beforehand, even if you're using natural light, just whatever your light scenario is going to be, set it up and then have a stand-in, just somebody to stand in and make sure that your settings are correct. And then you can use the gray card and do the eyedropper to make sure that your temperature and your tint is perfect, so that the photos are a little. It just helps. I really like it a lot. And then I use Tether Tools. It's I'm sure if you Google Tether Tools, you'll be able to see it. But they have because the other scary part about it for me is I'm really clumsy, and having a cord going from my very expensive camera to my very expensive computer, like the two things that I care about most in the world, where I could trip over it, is really scary to me. So Tether Tools has saved me more than once because they have these, they're called jerk stoppers, and it's basically a quick...
I don't get it. I've looked at these devices before, and it looked like it's going to tip my camera over.
And one time it didn't work as it was supposed to, and it did fail, but it's supposed to save your ports on both your camera and your computer first, and they do have quick release ones that just come right apart.
Okay, so describe it as if I'm an idiot, because I kind of am. How exactly does this thing work? So it's a cord that it's like this attachment that's going from like 3 inches up the cord to the camera, and it's tied on to the camera. How does it help though? I don't get that.
So it has a quick release. So this part will release first.
Click. I can see.
No, it really does help. And then they actually have these new ones that I want to get that just releases completely, which would be a lot better, because you're right, this one doesn't work all the time, but the main thing is to save your ports, because if your port gets bent out of the camera, like you tip over it, and then that's going to be a really expensive fix.
Okay, that makes sense. That's pretty cool. So when you hear that click, or when you see that you've pulled it, then the hope is you'd stop.
Well, yeah, usually, but I've actually had people come into the studio and trip over it, and it actually works as it's supposed to, because your tripod is usually weighted down too, so it's not going to be that easy to tip over.
Okay, I see.
So it releases. I know that's silly, like me trying to pull it apart, but it is a lot stronger than I am, apparently.
That's cool. That looks like a cool device. I've heard of people talking about them, but I just never quite got it, so I never bought one. So I think that makes sense to me. That's pretty cool. I think I better get one of these.
Yeah, one time though, my camera did go flying, and luckily it was fine. But it was very scary. But it's still better than nothing at all, and I am going to get the better one soon. And then as far as systems to tether to, I haven't had great luck with Lightroom. I feel like when I'm just testing it at home, it works fine and it's really fast. But then when I need it to work fast with a client, it doesn't. It lags. And I think that's just Murphy's Law. But I use a system called Capture One. It's very, very similar to Lightroom. It's about $15 a month, but you get the first 30 days for free. And it's really quick. A lot of commercial photographers swear by it. And I don't think I could go back to using Lightroom since I've started.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing that about tethering, because I am completely intimidated by the whole thought of it. And I didn't even realize there were such things as, well, and I'm a very clumsy person too. It would not even occur to me that I need to try to figure out some way to keep my stuff from falling over until I run into it and it falls over.
I feel like it's a prerequisite to be a photographer that you have to be clumsy.
a little awkward.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, sorry.
Well, I tested Capture One a few months ago. This is right before Capture One 9 came out. And my impression of Capture One is it's, first of all, very competitive to Lightroom. There's not really anything you can do in Lightroom that you can't do in Capture One. There are maybe a couple little things, but there are some things in Capture One that you can't do in Lightroom. It does seem to import and browse through photos much, much, much faster, which I definitely liked. Some of the things in there I think were a little bit of gimmicks where it just called things multiple names, but it was really the exact same thing as Lightroom. They just gave you a million settings. I definitely think it was more confusing to learn than Lightroom is, and you'll have fewer training resources with it, but it definitely shows a lot of promise. And could I eventually see myself switching at some time? Maybe. I think I maybe could see myself doing that at some time. There are some neat features about it, especially the color grading. But right now, I'm still just putting my faith in Adobe. I'm still thinking it's coming. Lightroom's going to fix this. We're going to get the speed under control. And once the speed's under control, the advantage to me is very minimal. But we'll see.
Yeah. And then they just started the subscription, I believe, because it was too expensive for me before. And you know, I was kind of sad about that, but $15 a month is worth it to me because I literally use it every day. So
Are there things that you use it for other than tethering? Because you do use Lightroom, right?
I do. It like Jim was saying, it's very, very similar to Lightroom. So no, if I'm not tethering, I usually don't use it. Okay. But I know some people do.
Yeah, I was just wondering because of the cost factor, you know, just trying to keep an eye on, there's always many more things to buy into and more subscriptions to buy into. And, you know, considering doing tethering and you like Capture One versus Lightroom, I'm just wondering about the cost factor of another subscription versus something that you already have. And I didn't, you know, the cost benefit is just something that I know that I would weigh in.
Right. Yeah, I would say start with Lightroom, and then if it looks like you're going to keep going down that route, do the 30-day test trial, and then see if you would want to continue.
Okay, makes sense.
So Lightroom does have tethering built in for a lot of cameras, but not all cameras. And the way that you tether is first you're going to need the special cord that connects from your computer from your camera, whatever kind of connection you have, over to the computer and a USB port. So once you plug that in, then you can go to File, Tethered Capture, Start Tethered Capture, and then it's going to take a little bit. Sometimes it can take like a full minute, and it'll connect to the camera. And a few times I thought, something's wrong, and I almost stopped it. But if you just wait, like sometimes it'll come. And then once it's working, I've had pretty good luck with Lightroom's Tethered Capture. I know a lot of people have major problems with it, but I've had pretty good luck. Maybe I've just been lucky with it. But you know, you take a picture and 3 or 4 seconds later, it's in there, and you can make edits and go with it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, we have a lot more to talk about today, but before we do that, we want to take a second and thank 2 sponsors that have helped to make the Improved Photography podcast possible. And the first one is Squarespace. Squarespace is the company that I use for my photography portfolio website. They host my photography portfolio, they make the design of it, and make it really, really easy to update with new pictures. So if you want to get an idea of what a Squarespace portfolio website might look like for a photographer, go to my photography portfolio at it's at photographyidaho.com. That's photographyidaho.com. And there you can see just one of the templates. They have a bunch of different templates that you can look at. Or that you can put on your website, and it takes just like a couple minutes just to make the change of what you want it to look like. The reason that I went with Squarespace before they were ever a sponsor of the website is that they have big full screen photos. That was the most important thing to me, is that I get really big photos. I tested a lot of other options that had some great features to them, but that's one that I felt that was missing, was just it looks pretty, that it just looks good with big pictures. And so that's one thing that tipped me over. Nick Page is also using Squarespace for his photography website. A bunch of us are. And that's really what I like about it. It's also very expandable. If you want to sell prints on your website, you can do that. If you want to sell photography workshops, you can do that. That's what Nick is doing on his Squarespace website. When you buy a workshop with Nick, you're using the Squarespace checkout to do that. So it's really expandable for that reason. There's 24/7 customer support, and it's really, really inexpensive. As photographers, we're always trying to manage manage our costs and making it profitable. And so you can get a free trial to check out Squarespace, so you don't have to spend any money and then regret it later. That's at squarespace.com, and then enter offer code IMPROVE, and that'll get you 10% off your first purchase. That's squarespace.com/improve, or squarespace.com and enter offer code IMPROVE to get 10% off. And by The Great Courses Plus. I have been a customer of The Great Courses for quite some time, before they were a sponsor of the podcast as well. And the thing that I love about The Great Courses is that it just helps me to be able to learn new things. When I graduated college, I felt like for a while that I had kind of hovered and I just wasn't learning new things. I was just doing work. And so I really wanted to just keep expanding my mind and learning about new things. It just helps me to feel like a human when I'm learning things. And so I have bought some courses from The Great Courses. The whole idea behind The Great Courses is they get the industry experts, college professors on a wide range of topics. I mean, food and wine, hobby and leisure, music and fine arts, literature, philosophy, math, science, history, travel, health, nutrition, whatever you imagine. And they just do kind of a masterclass on whatever topic it is. So The Great Courses Plus is a subscription site where you can get a whole bunch of different content in all of those categories, including lessons from National Geographic photographers on photography. That's at thegreatcoursesplus.com/improve. That's thegreatcoursesplus.com/improve. Sign up today for a free 1-month trial. And that's at thegreatcoursesplus.com/improve. And we thank them for their support of the podcast. Well, Zelda, I think you and I wanted to talk a little bit about something kind of on the same vein, about kind of what is holding us back in photography. So I'm going to let you get started, and then I want to add a beautiful, beautiful poem. I am not one for poetry, but today I have poetry to give to you. What do you have for us, Zelda?
Okay, so my heart is in everything in life is about motivation and trying to help people grow. And I'm a teacher, so that's my full-time job. And obviously being a mom, I teach high school music, chorus, singing. And so one of the things that I try to help people with is understanding that they're the only things that are holding themselves back. It's their own thinking. And, and everything that you're trying to do and trying to, be a singer, people say, I can't sing. Well, yes, you can. You just really just have to get some guidance and you have to practice and all that stuff. But in photography and in building my photography business, I think we are all victims of whatever it is that we think is a weakness in our minds, and it holds us back from doing everything that we can do. And I'm going to use the example of Stephen Schwartz. Do you guys know who Stephen Schwartz is?
No,
I've heard the name.
I haven't heard of him.
Okay, so Stephen Schwartz is a songwriter, and he actually is the songwriter, lyricist, composer of the Broadway musical Wicked. Are you guys familiar with that?
That's where I know.
Yeah. And so he also wrote the music for Pocahontas and a whole bunch of Broadway musicals and other Disney movies. But he wrote this song. It's called Forgiveness Embrace, and it starts out by saying, I'm a victim of a victim of a victim, and I think we've all felt that way. We're a victim of our parents who brought us up in whatever environment, and they're a victim of their own parents, and so it's just this, this guck that we have to deal with, that we're given. And so what he says is that he forgives his parents for it. But then the line that really struck me is that he forgives himself for not being everything that he can be. And I'm like, you're Stephen Schwartz. You wrote Wicked, and you have Grammy Awards for the original cast recording of. Oh wait, is somebody playing it? Did I do that, or did you do that too? It's a really lovely song. You'll have to hear it. But then, he's got Oscar awards, he's got Grammy awards, and he himself sometimes feels like a fraud. He feels like I'm not everything that I should be and I could be. And so I think if I can look at Stephen Schwartz and say, wow, he feels that way at the level that he's performing, then I'm not alone in thinking that, I'm not everything that I could be. And so, in my own struggles, I sometimes compare myself to other photographers, as we all do. And I'm in a different phase of life than a lot of the photographers around here in Atlanta. They're all young and they're beautiful and they relate to the brides that I want to photograph and stuff like that. They're all in that age bracket or that age range or in that demographic, and I'm a little bit outside of that maybe, but I have to switch my thinking. I have to think to myself, maybe I'm not that same age, and maybe I'm not young and starry-eyed and hopeful about the world and about to get married, and so I can't relate to a bride that way, but I bring my own strengths to photography. I'm more mature. And I can relate to people, I think, on a deeper level because I don't have to, just because of where I am in life, I've had more experience. And so I can relate to people a little bit better that way. And, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was saying how, when he was taking pictures of like seniors, trying to relate to them, by the end of the shoot, they're so comfortable with him that they're like, jokingly flicking him off or something like that. And I'm like, well, I don't have to worry about that anymore. So, what I would originally think as a weakness or something that would hold me back from relating to the people that I want to photograph is actually a benefit. So it really is just something that you have to kind of look at. They're two sides of the same coin. You have to look at what you think is a weakness and understand that that's a strength too. And it's your own perception of that, what you would call a weakness, and that can really propel you forward in everything that you want to do.
I think that's a really good point. I don't know how many times I've put limits on my own photography. When I first started, I said, well, all I have is a Canon Rebel XS. I can't be a good photographer. And then all I have is a crop sensor D7100. If I had the full frame, I could do this. And then I get the full frame like, nah, but it's too heavy to carry around. I want a mirrorless camera. And you say, oh, but I have a full-time job. I don't have any models in my city of 2,000 people, so I can't build up a portfolio. I don't have weekends free, so I can't shoot weddings, so I can't make any money in photography. I will never be able to teach a workshop. I can't get a following online. I only have 100 followers on Instagram, so I can't do this or that. Like, there are a million different ways you can justify why you're not going to succeed. And the more you put those in your head, the more likely you are to be right, that you're not going to succeed because you've put those limits on yourself of what it is you can do. I think that's a great lesson.
I was just talking. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sandy.
I was just talking to a friend of mine who said that she wanted to get into lifestyle photography, and she just got a DSLR, and she said, but I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to put myself out there. And I said, well, you're never going to be good enough then. So just do it. I mean, even if you're just doing it for free, just do it. And she's already started her own business in less than 6 months. And she's doing amazing. Yeah. Like, you just got to put it out of your head. Like, who cares? Just do it.
Yeah, so true. And we're never good enough to begin with. We're all hacks to start with. But, just the more you do it, obviously the better you get at it, and the more confidence you have in yourself, and the more people look at your stuff and, kind of help you lift yourself up. But, one of the things that drives me berserko when people talk to me, and I'm sure you guys have kind of similar experiences in your own way, is people say, oh, well, you can do that because you have, you're a teacher, you have summers off, you can build your business in the summertime. Well, that's just not the case, because I started my business well, it's, I've been kind of dabbling with it here and there and doing like Christmas portraits and stuff for friends, but I didn't really start going full force with my business until July last summer. And at the time I was 7 months pregnant and shooting in really hot Atlanta. Like, it's miserable when you're that pregnant and you're on the ground trying to get different perspectives. I mean, literally laying on the ground, trying to get these wonderful creative perspectives and shooting people. And then, school starts in August, and by then I'm 8 months pregnant. And then in 9 months pregnant, I was actually booking my first two weddings, like my first two paid weddings. I was in the hospital, like trying to have this baby, and I booked my first two weddings. So, anybody who uses the excuses of, your situation is different than mine, of course you can do it because your situation is different than mine. You just have to, if you want it badly enough, you'll push through whatever it is that's holding you back, and you'll do it. You really can. You can.
I always say, just get over yourself. Just get over yourself and do it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think part of finding your success in photography is finding what kind of unfair advantages you do have, because everybody has some kind of advantage on the other person. Like instead of looking at someone and saying, well, you can build your business during the summer, you're a teacher, and just seeing the advantages that they have, if you really think through it, you have certain advantages over everybody else as well. And by exploiting those advantages, you can find what your calling is and really be successful in photography. For me, my unfair advantage over everybody else was I'm pretty good with internet marketing and gaining a following and blogging and that kind of thing. And so instead of trying to be a wedding photographer where I am not very skilled, I don't enjoy it, and trying to force myself into somebody else's advantages, I'm sticking to mine. My advantage is what I can do well on the computer and building a blog. And aside from Improved Photography, I've built several other blogs with really big followings. And so that's my advantage, and I'm sticking to that, what I'm good at, and it has been really helpful instead of trying to do all of the other things where I just really don't have an advantage. So everybody has it. Maybe the advantage is you got money, and so you can spend money on workshops, on training videos, on all kinds of different things to invest into your business and have that as a big advantage to get started with. Maybe your advantage is time. I'm recently single. If somebody, not me, if someone recently has become single and they have a lot of time on their hands, man, you could spend a ton of time doing all kinds of shoots. Maybe your advantage is you're in college and you have a lot of beautiful friends and you can do a ton of model shoots and it doesn't cost you a thing. Everybody has some kind of advantage that you can add into your photography. And so finding those and exploiting them is the best way to find success.
Definitely.
Okay, I told you I was going to share a poem with you, and I'm going to.
So
we
excited.
need some
soothing
music. But this is...
Oh, I'm on it. I can make it happen.
So Zelda was talking about, kind of finding your advantage and how you can succeed in photography and not making excuses. And I kind of had a poem that has been inspirational to me. I usually don't really like poetry. I don't know why. It just doesn't really speak to me very often. But there was a poem that somebody shared with me in college, and I wanted to share with you today. It is from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It says, "The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night." And so it's basically just saying, find yourself up late working hard on something instead of just kind of going to bed and being lazy and kind of just doing the day-to-day thing. If you are in the seat of wanting to become a professional photographer and the goal seems so far away, you don't get any more 9 p.m. bedtimes, and you don't get to wake up anymore at 8:30 in the morning. We all have time, and we need to kind of just allocate it to the things that we want to. So if you want to become a great photographer, professional or not, you're going to have to put in a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And so last night I found myself, I have this new audio system that I'm trying to work on the audio for the podcast. And it's been so frustrating to me. I'm not great at this stuff. And I had to go buy 2 different audio mixers, and I have no idea how to use them. Of course, it was a brand new model, and so I couldn't even get any help from the store. They didn't even know how to use it. And so I was up until 1 o'clock in the morning working on this, and I was just super frustrated. Nothing was turning out right. And it kind of made me think that, like, those are the times that you're going to see the biggest jumps forward in anything you try to do, especially in photography, is the times where you fail and you kind of come short and you're really just banging your head on the table because you're overcoming things that other people will turn around and quit at. So by you pushing forward, you're going to have a big advantage over other people. In Improve Photography Plus, my mentoring students, we did a photo challenge this month. And 5 or 6 of them messaged me this last week and said, I had this idea. I've been working on it. I had a goal to do it. I went out to shoot and it just flopped. The photo looks dumb. It just didn't turn out how I imagined. And I wrote back to all of them and I said, you know what? You learned a lot more in this photo challenge than the other people who got lucky and had success, because those times are really where you see yourself moving. And if you need a little bit of a push that way, you need to find a new technique, something to bang your head on the table with, go to Improve Photography Plus. Go get your 2-week free trial and find one of the tutorials. There are dozens of hours of video training on there. Go find one that's like the thing that I know nothing about, and go learn a new technique. Be the person who's willing to stay up and learn and try new things while everybody else is sleeping and staying at the same level.
Or even just listening to the podcast is a really good starting point. I've had so many people that ask me how to do something. I say, there was a podcast about this, and I send it to them. And then 2 weeks later, I say, did you listen to that podcast? No, not yet. And it's like, okay, well, all right, I can't really help you. You got to have the drive to want it. So I think you're in the right spot. Just listening to the podcast, you're doing something right.
Yeah, I think the same thing as you, Sandy. Like, so many times I've talked with entrepreneurs who are working on blogs. Is another thing that I do, is kind of helping other bloggers get started. And so many times they'll come to me and say, I can't get a following. My website's just puny. I've been working on it for 2 years and there's only, 50 people a month coming to my website. What am I doing wrong? And they want me to hand them a silver bullet, and I'll look at their website and they haven't written in 2 months. And when they did write, it was this dinky little 300-word post, mostly about themselves, some little opinion piece. And it's like, of course it's not going to work. You're not putting in the time. You can't just sit there and hope the garden grows. You need to actually put in the work to get the rewards. And it's tough. Like, I'm there right now with exercise. Like, I've been in good shape before. A year and a half ago, I ran a full marathon and I was in pretty good shape then. And now I'm just starting to get lazy, and I realize, okay, I've got to do something. I got to get better. And it's the same thing. Like, I can't just sit there and want it to happen. I can't read a blog post or look at skinny people on Pinterest and hope it's going to come. You got to get out there and put out the hard, unfun work if you want to get those results.
Yeah, everything that you want is on the other side of hard work. And I tell people all the time, because they, being a course teacher, obviously I have to be entertaining to my students, and I, can sing and stuff like that. And so they're like, well, you're good at it, or you're passionate about it. Well, it's not about passion. It's not about how well I sing. It's about how hard I worked to get here. And it's not, I tell my students this all the time, and I hope this is not inappropriate, but I tell them it's not sexy. It's not easy, and it's not fun to be good at something. It's hard work, and the reward that you get is not in doing the work, but the reward is in the feeling the accomplishment each time you fall down and get back up again.
Very good. I appreciate that. Well, in every episode, we like to share with you a doodad of the week. And the one that I want to share with you this week is the Zhiyun Z1 Smooth C. I have no idea how to pronounce that. It's Zhiyun. Zhiyun Z1 Smooth C. Awesome name to this sucker. This is a stabilizer for your cell phone. So I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I tried the Glide Cam. This is like the industry standard for professional photographers for stabilizing your video as you're moving it around, for handheld at least. And it wasn't right for me. It was a mess. And like, I just want to, like, as I'm traveling, do quick videos that look good and professional. It doesn't have to look like Hollywood. It doesn't have to look like Hollywood for me. I don't have, I'm already taking pictures and I'm just doing the tutorial as a secondary thing. So I can't, set up a Hollywood shoot every time I'm doing a photo shoot. I don't have a video crew following me around. And so I wanted to just get good video, though, that looked good so we can use it on Improved Photography Plus and, looks professional, but not Hollywood. And so the iPhone takes great video. It's just a matter of getting good audio to go with it, good lighting, and smooth camera movements. And so this is a motorized, handheld, gimbal-based, steady thing that you hold in one hand, and it feels the shake in your hand, and with motors it counteracts them to hold the camera steady. And I watched quite a few YouTube videos on this. It looks pretty darn cool. It's $228. It's pretty expensive for a stabilizer, but if you're in the same spot as me that you want to do some motion to add to your photography, it looks pretty cool. It's going to come in from UPS tomorrow, so I haven't tested it yet, but it is looking cool.
So it's like a segue for your phone.
That's right. It is a phone segue. All right, Sandy, what do you have for us?
My doodad is so exciting. Are you ready for this? So if you want to shoot on a black background, I thought that black paper was the way to go, and I was so wrong. You use a black piece of velvet. And the reason that you use a black piece of velvet is because the fibers all go different ways, and they absorb the light, and you will get a deep, dark black background.
Oh, very cool.
Backdrop. Yeah.
That's cool. So, and does it wrinkle?
No. And it doesn't matter anyway because it'll just be so dark anyway. So if it was wrinkled, you wouldn't see it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty cool. So I used to use muslins for my photos just as I'm taking pictures. And I hated using muslins because they always got wrinkly in the background. But that was with a white. So I guess black, it doesn't really matter. But velvet, that's a cool idea. I wonder if you could use, let's see, velvet. So I'm fabric illiterate here, Sandy. So velvet. Okay, so I'm thinking, am I thinking of flannel or velvet?
You're thinking probably of flannel. Velvet is like really soft to the touch.
Like
fuzzy.
silk?
It's fuzzy.
And not soft, not smooth.
It's got like little hairs.
Okay. Hairy black cloth.
I don't know how to describe that.
Got it.
Okay, so I don't know if this will make sense to you, but on Coming to America, there's a scene where the guy is wearing a lion fur on his, like a shawl. It's like, James Earl Jones is wearing this lion fur, and this guy comes up to him and says, "That's beautiful. What is that? Velvet?" It's like that.
It's very soft, plush, but it's not expensive. It's a synthetic fabric. I'm sure at one point it was made out of animal fur, but it's not anymore. You could get it. I'm not even kidding. At the Walmart fabric section, you just ask for black velvet or black felt,
or for a lion pelt.
Velvet. Now you've got me thinking. Now you've got me confused. Velvet.
Okay, go to Africa, kill a rare lion, put it on a photography backdrop. Got it.
And you will have the most fabulous.
Oh no! Now I got it. Okay, see, I was looking. I just Googled this Coming to America, and it was James Earl Jones with a lion on his shoulder. But now I found the picture. Okay, I got it. Velvet.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were suggesting the murder of rare animals.
No.
It's not expensive. You don't have to eat it.
No, it's funny for you to get the idea of the texture of velvet. It feels like fur. It feels like an animal's fur.
All right.
But it absorbs the light, so it'll give you a very, very, very black background.
Very cool.
Okay, well, I'm going to change my doodad of the week. So, and I'll post this in the Improved Photography Facebook group. I was originally going to do the YN RF603 triggers, which I know people have done before. But I found, and I'll post this in the Facebook group. I found that I could make a Canon body talk to a Nikon flash using these triggers, and I'll explain that later in the Facebook group. But what I actually want to do for my Doodad of the Week is another podcast that I listen to, and it follows along the same lines that we've been talking about. It's the MFCEO, and MF stands for exactly what you think it would stand for. It is not for the faint of heart. There are a lot of curse words in it, but it's a very much kick you in the butt kind of podcast. And it took me a little while to get over the way he talks. He's from the North, and he's got that whole tough guy Northern thing going on. But he makes so much sense when it comes to, trying to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's not about passion, it's about hard work. And when you make excuses, or when you point to somebody else and say that, oh, you can do this because of whatever, then you're negating that other person's hard work. So I listen to it often when I'm not listening to many of the Improved Photography Network podcasts, but it helps me to stay motivated, because there are no excuses. When you're owning your own business, you don't have any excuses. Nobody's chasing after you. You're in control of your own success, and this helps me stay motivated.
Very cool.
That Doodad definitely matches the theme of this episode.
Yes. It's not as gentle as Henry Wadsworth Longfellow.
Not as gentle. Well, okay, so maybe what we should do is everybody share a podcast that you listen to. This will be our do random of the week. Something non-photography that you listen to. What kind of podcast do you guys listen to?
Random.
So Zelda, we heard
that.
yours. Sandy, how about you? Do you have a non-photography podcast that you like?
I do. I listen to the Jillian Michaels podcast for the same exact reason.
She just kicked
like
you in the
motivates
butt.
me and
Get out there and exercise,
Yeah,
you
it
fat little
does.
slob!
and I know she's very controversial, and you either love her or hate her. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, actually, but her topics are very, very relevant, and I've never it's motivating. It's really motivating.
Very cool. Well, I listen to a bunch of different podcasts, but the one that I would recommend is called Planet Money from NPR. I love as much story-based content as possible. I love the This American Life, that kind of show. Serial I really enjoy. I'm always looking for more of those. 60 Minutes is another one that I really like. The kind of just stories about different things. And Planet Money is a cool one. It's not. I thought it would be more just like financial tips and stuff, but it's really just kind of cool. Cool stories that have something to do with finance. So kind of following people's lives and things. And another one is Life of the Law. Maybe this because for the law nerds out there, but Life of the Law is pretty cool as well. Just kind of story-based content. So those are the ones I'd recommend. Oh, and also...
I'm not the only one that listens to NPR.
No, I like NPR. they have more than 2 listeners. Well, maybe it's just us. Maybe they make it just for me and you, Sandy.
Well, I think I'll have to listen now. Now they have 3. See?
The other thing that I would recommend is the Overcast app. If you are listening to this podcast on an iPhone and you're using just the default podcasts app, you're gonna thank me for this. Just go on the App Store. I think it costs like $3. It's called Overcast. And it has some really distinct advantages over the normal podcasts app. One of those advantages being smart speed. So it skips the pauses between words. In addition to being able to just speed it up, it skips the pauses between words. And I see if I can find it right now, but it gives you stats
speed reading
on how much time you have saved by using that feature. And it was something like 16 days of my life it has saved by using that smart speed feature. Because I listened to a ton of podcasts. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was a lot because it's just speeding up a little bit. So check out Overcast on the App Store. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us for this little bit random episode of the Improved Photography Podcast. There were a lot of firsts. First times we got to have Zelda on the show. First time you heard me reading poetry. We had like 15 different doodads of the week, but it was a good episode. Sandy and Zelda, it was great talking with you guys, and we will see you all in another 7 days.